You're just vesting them with the authority of their new position.
All right.
Aviation update.
Welcome, everybody, to the May 28th, 2024 Police Commission meeting. Call this meeting to order. It's nice to see a big crowd today, and it's exciting because we have some award ceremonies. So we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead off. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And given the packed crowd today for us, I'll request a motion to suspend the agenda.
I move to suspend the agenda and move items number 1 and 2 under the chief's report up to the beginning.
Up to the top.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Welcome, everybody. Someone's beeping. We're going to start this off with an award ceremony, recognizing two of our distinguished officers, Detective Witterstrom and Auxiliary John Paraki, who at the time was started as a sergeant and a captain in our detective division. In July 2023, I, along with the New Hampshire Attorney General John Formella, announced that a cold case homicide from September of 1991 in Portsmouth had been solved. On September 28, 1981, the body of 23-year-old Laura Kempton was discovered in her residence by a police officer who was attempting to serve a court summons. An autopsy later concluded that the ruling was a death. The ruling of her death was a homicide. Physical evidence was collected from the scene that years later revealed a male DNA profile. Over the next 4 decades, investigators pursued hundreds of leads and potential suspects, but were unable to identify the perpetrator. John Paraki, in this case, kept this case updated from 2003 until his retirement in 2022. He was one of several investigators who worked on eliminating suspects, comparing their DNA to the DNA profile of the killer. He worked tirelessly keeping up on developments in DNA, all while entering the DNA profiles into CODIS, which is a system where DNA profiles are entered. Every crime scene leaving the country and Interpol. December 2016, then John was a sergeant, learned a cold case homicide in Arizona that had been solved with the assistance of Colleen Fitzpatrick, who was a genealogist with a company called Identifiers International. He consulted with Miss Fitzpatrick to see if there was evidence in Laura Kempton's case that could be suitable for her genetic genealogy analysis process. Ms. Fitzpatrick explained the technique available for genealogical work at the time, used a short tandem repeat sequence found on the male Y chromosome profile. Sergeant Paraki consulted with Kathleen McMillan of the Maine State Lab, who obtained a Y chromosome from the profile that they'd obtained from a cigarette butt found next to Miss Kempton's body. Ms. Fitzpatrick analyzed the Y chromosome profile and determined that it belonged to a male with African American heritage. Ms. Fitzpatrick was unable to generate more specific results at the time, but this started the process that ultimately led to this case being solved, just as Captain Paraki was ready to retire. In August of 2020, Detective Witterstrom, who then started working on the case, took the lead from retired Captain John Perocchi. In September of 2021, the Attorney General's office approved evidence from the crime scene to be submitted to the Identifiers International to evaluate the viability and additional testing after it was suggested by our police department. In May of 2022, Detective Witterstrom was notified that a profile had been successfully obtained and ultimately connected to the biological parents of the suspect DNA profile. Detective Witterstrom had to corroborate this information by making an extensive timeline of the suspect's life, to include speaking with family members, getting military and employee records, tracking his criminal history, and other police reports. Additionally, he was able to locate blood samples taken at a 2005 autopsy to compare directly to the DNA profile from the scene. Eric also presented a PowerPoint that outlined the case and the suspect's timeline to me, the City Attorney's Office, and the senior staff of the Attorney General's office. Eric worked closely with Maine and New Hampshire state labs going over evidence and photographs from the original scene, and he did this while constantly staying in touch with Laura Kempton's family. On July 20th, 2023, after several meetings, emails, interviews, and phone conversations, the Attorney General's office confirmed the work that Detective Eric Witterstrom had conducted by announcing the 41-year-old cold case had been solved. If not for the tireless, compassionate, and dedicated work of retired Captain John Perocchi and Detective Eric Witterstrom, this case may still remain unsolved. This was a job well done by John and Eric. They displayed an example of how hard work and dedication can yield positive results. Both John and Eric are being honored this evening with the first ever Paul Lindsay Detective Award for demonstrating excellence in a high-profile criminal investigation that resulted in a positive outcome for the case, the department, and most importantly for the victims and family involved. This award is in honor of Paul Lindsay, a decorated Marine Vietnam veteran, a retired 20-year FBI agent, and a longtime volunteer of the Portsmouth Police Department. Paul worked from 1999 to 2011, assisting our department by working on 2 unsolved homicides. He freely gave his time and shared his experience with members of this department. Paul was pursuing justice for the victims of 2 homicides right up until he passed away in 2011. A plaque in the honor of Paul will be kept in the investigative division with the award recipients' names engraved. They are also going to be awarded today a Medal of Honorable Service for demonstrating outstanding initiative and competence for their work on this case. I'd also like to say that Paul's wife, Patty, and his daughter, Larissa, had planned to be here tonight, but for unforeseen circumstances, they couldn't meet it. But they also want to send their congratulations to John and Eric for the hard work that they did, and honor for the police department, and recognizing Paul for his time and dedication as well in the case. If John and Eric could come up, I will present you with your ribbons. Sorry, let me get these things off. Give these. The globe there. John. I will add that there's been a lot of hard work that went on to that. We also have another unsolved case related to that Eric is continuing to work on, where hopefully that through continued lab work and DNA profile, we'll be able to solve that soon as well. Next will be the vest in our rank. We'll start with Auxiliary Captain Elena Blaze. Come up. On January 24th, 2024, you can come up, Elena. An oral board process was conducted by myself and Deputy Chief Maloney and Captain Keaveney. The board unanimously recommended that Lieutenant Elena Blaze be promoted to the rank of Auxiliary Captain. Elena has a long history with the Portsmouth Police Department, starting in June of 1995 when she joined the Portsmouth Police Explorer program. That was my first year on the job. Guess I'm aging myself. I lost my place now. Gaining knowledge and training in law enforcement. In December of 2001, Elena was hired as a full-time public safety dispatcher, and in January 2002, she was sworn in as an auxiliary police officer. After resigning her position as a full-time public safety dispatcher to become a full-time mother in June of 2007, she remained dedicated to assisting the Communications Center on a part-time basis. In February 2018, Elena was promoted to the rank of auxiliary sergeant. She worked alongside retired auxiliary lieutenant David Susi. In January 2021, she was hired as a part-time evidence technician, where she still maintains her property and evidence, where she still maintains all property and evidence involved in all cases in the department. In April of 2021, after retirement of her predecessor, Elena was promoted to the rank of auxiliary lieutenant, and again promoted in January of 2024 to her current rank of auxiliary captain. In her current role, Elena oversees 22 auxiliaries, including her ranking counterparts, and she is the ad hoc chief of the auxiliary unit. So I'd just like to thank you and congratulations. Yes, someone. Next would be Auxiliary Lieutenant Jeff Stacy. On February 14th, 2024, an oral board interview process was conducted by Captain Nick Small and Auxiliary Captain Elena Blaze. The board unanimously recommended Sergeant Jeff Stacy to be promoted to the rank of Auxiliary Lieutenant. Jessica graduated from the University of New Hampshire in May 2006 with a bachelor's degree in communications and was immediately hired by the Portsmouth Police as a full-time communications dispatcher. In April 2007, while serving as a full-time dispatcher, Jessica trained to become a part-time police officer and joined our auxiliary unit. While still working full-time as a dispatcher and part-time officer, Jess pursued her master's degree in business administration along with a certificate in accounting from Southern New Hampshire University, along with a certificate from Southern New Hampshire. Yeah. In May of 2013, she resigned as a full-time dispatcher and was hired by Liberty Mutual, where she currently works in the IT department and manages implementation of multi-million-dollar projects for them. In May of 2021, Jessica was promoted to the rank of auxiliary sergeant as retained her certification as a part-time dispatcher to help out, which she can in a limited capacity. With that, through her training experience, she's been promoted to lieutenant and is an additional assist lieutenant auxiliary captain, Elena Blaze, in running our auxiliary unit. Congratulations. Next, we'd like to present Auxiliary Sergeant Chris Roth. On April 1st, 2024, an all-board interview process was conducted by Patrol Captain Nick Small and Auxiliary Captain Lena Blaze, and the board unanimously recommended the Auxiliary Chris Roth to be promoted to Sergeant. Chris started his career with the Portsmouth Police Department in January of 1991. He worked at the previous police station that was located on Penn Hollow Street, and he worked as a full-time patrolman for roughly 18 years, serving on just about every team you can imagine. September of 2009, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant in the patrol division. As a supervisor, Chris was respected by many for his vast institutional knowledge and professional demeanor. After serving in a full-time capacity for 30 years, he made a decision to retire in April of 2021. That same month, Chris committed to join the auxiliary unit, where he continues to serve the Portsmouth community. Just 3 years later, Chris was promoted to the rank of sergeant, where his supervisory skills are put to good use, and his experience as well. Congratulations, Chris. All right, that concludes our award ceremony. Thank you guys all for attending, their support. I would assume you don't want to stay for the fun of meeting that's going to continue on from here, so you could leave at this time if you'd like. So I'll go.
Hopefully I'm out of it by next meeting.
Oh my gosh.
It's a long time.
Long haul.
Plate screws, it's just,
Huh?
yeah. It's
I think so. His father was in the our police department.
Swear to God, I went to St. Pat's school with him.
Yeah?
Maybe either younger or older than me. So I think he's got a sister named Jessica.
That I don't
I
know.
think so. My husband knows that stuff. I was looking at him like,
You look familiar.
yes.
That's so wonderful.
Let's turn the podium around so it's easier for the chief.
Social hour's over. Get the hell out of here.
Congratulations. Thank you for all your work. Thank you so much.
Hey, good job.
Thank you. Thank you. We haven't, not yet, yeah.
Yeah, it's really great work.
The case was a big deal.
Oh, Mike left already, huh? Look at this. This is right up here. They did a little swarm.
I didn't relieve Mike, so I'm taking over for him tonight.
I'm a little concerned
Well,
that you're going to screw up the traffic stats.
I could.
Well, we're back. It's remarkable to see how quickly this place empties after those ceremony. And congratulations to the award recipients and for the promotions. If nothing else, it is so revealing what dedication and to the agency, to the community, and to the cases that we see by our members of the police force. So thank you for everyone's dedication and contribution. Now I'll take a motion for acceptance of the meeting minutes from April 16th.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And it's public comment, and as echoed before, it's pretty quiet in these parts. So we will move on to the new business and the police commission. And first, we'd like to welcome up Brooke Murphy, who is our new social worker here at the PD, and she's going to come up, give a little background, and tell us about what her role is and what she's doing here. Brooke, thank you so much for being here tonight, and welcome aboard. We're so thrilled to have you working for us.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and thank you for you guys for staying to hear a little bit about social work. So for those who haven't met me, my name is Brooke Murphy. I am the new social worker at Portsmouth Police Department. I started on April 1st of this year. Luckily, it was not an April Fool's joke, so I was very happy to see that when I came in. While I am new to the department, I'm not completely new to the city of Portsmouth. I've actually worked in the city of Portsmouth since, I believe, June 2018 at a local nonprofit. So I am very familiar with the community. When starting this program, it was very unique in starting a new job in the sense that the social work program did not exist in the PD prior. So really my beginning stages of this role has been helping to develop the program along with Sergeant Hood and Captain Keaveney. It's been a wonderful collaborative effort. What we've been doing at the beginning of my stages is I was spending a lot of time going out in the community, meeting with community partners such as Chase Home, Crossroads, Portsmouth Hospital, City Welfare, so that once I'm starting to get more developed into the role, have clients, I'm not a new face to these providers, and I have that network available. Along with that, I've spent a lot of time within the police department doing ride-alongs with patrol so I can understand more about the environment of the police department, but also to hear feedback from the department in terms of what they're hoping to see in the social work role. And that was also part of meeting the community partners as well. So we've been taking a lot of feedback from both within the department and the community of what do we want to see from a social worker in Portsmouth Police Department. Along with that, I was also doing research. I was going to police departments, Dover Police Department, Sanford, a few different that have police social workers, and learning from them about how they develop their program and what works for them. One of the biggest, I think, learning curves we realize is that police social work tends to come in two different forms: intensive case management model and the co-response model. It's difficult for one person initially to start doing both. So right now what our focus is on is doing intensive case management, which means that when someone has contact with the police department, based off which different type of referrals and what kind of issues present, they could be referred to the social work department, and I would do follow-up services with them, connect them with referrals, sometimes be my own support within the department for them. Our hope is that we will eventually move to it being a hybrid between a co-response. So co-response is when we get a call and the social worker goes out with a patrol officer in that moment to handle the call. That is something that is more of a longer term goal that we are hoping as the program develops more and I become more experienced within department, we can move towards that. So just to give you a little bit, it's only just under 2 months since I've started. In some of my research is really it takes about 4 to 6 months to start developing your clients and working with them, and we are much more ahead of that. I do have a little bit of an active caseload now, which has been wonderful. To give you an idea of where those referrals coming in, they are coming in from patrol officers, ranking officers, and some are my own self-referrals, which is I review the dispatch logs and kind of look for primary key indicators of someone that may need social service needs, or the issue that presented that called could have been prevented if services were in place. The primary of my caseload right now is mostly mental health concerns. I would say the secondary would be elderly issues, and then social service needs, which tends to be unhoused, food acquisition, medical as well as that. So how that's looking is very different for each client. I have a few clients that have been short-term in the sense that they just need connecting. One of my first clients, I've had her connected to the Family Resource Center kinship program, and she no longer needs my services, because that's our hope, is that I'm finding those individuals that have those barriers and gaps to services and connect them, and they're going to move forward to where I connected them, and I'll continue to work with those people who really need that additional push, additional service. And then on the other hand is I have people who I talk with on a daily basis. I have a couple clients I meet with weekly to check in who have mostly said mental health concerns and helping them with their coping and help them stay really stabilized. And I have some clients with very severe chronic mental illness that I'm talking with on a regular basis daily. So just to give you kind of idea, it's very broad, the role. But again, we are really kind of honing in the program and still really learning about how we're going to continue developing it.
That's great. Thank you so much. Could you talk a little bit about, like, just take us through or explain for the public how a call comes in, a patrol officer identifies a call, refers it to you, and then how do you take it from there?
Yeah, so it really, again, it's one of those, you're always going to hear me say it's dependent on the person and situation, but it very much can be. So when it comes to patrol, what it has tended to be is more the frequent flyers. I think that's where I've gotten a lot of my patrol referrals of the people that they're going out and meeting with regularly, whether they're getting calls because these are individuals trespassing, community members calling suspicious activity, and they're saying, hey, it's the same person or the same two people, and they're just looking for somewhere warm to stay, or at this point, somewhere cool to stay. Individuals that they're going out with very often, and most often someone who's unhoused, and very often people don't just choose to, experience homelessness. There's usually an underlying issue, oftentimes mental health. So again, we're getting calls on the same people very frequently. So I think with patrol, even before the social work program started, or once they knew it was starting, kind of already had some individuals in mind of saying, this is someone who really needs additional support. And there's those frequent flyers that are getting calls that are not engaging in criminal behavior, and it's not a criminal manner, but they need some type of support and service.
And so in those instances, is your objective predominantly trying to link these individuals with existing resources in the community?
Yes. Yes.
Whether
So
it's-
one of the things we want to make sure that the social work role doesn't do is just duplicate services. So if there's already something that exists, so for example, I'm not replacing mobile response, I'm not a rapid response or mobile crisis. There might be times where I do assist in that if their wait time, because that can be an issue at times, but again, those are more long-term goals. But that is really the goal, is for the social work in a police department, is the people who have the barriers to accessing those services themselves. And I did not answer in terms of how I go about that. So if they have some individuals, I just call right up and they answer and we talk. Some are texting, some I'm emailing with, and some of them don't have phones. And I, not too long ago, was walking through the woods with 2 patrol officers to make contact with someone. So it's very different ways that contact does happen. Sometimes it's through family members. So if there's been a frequent flyer, but there's family members who've cooperated with police department and that we have a good relationship with, I'm calling with them so they can help connect me with the individual, maybe give me some background information that would help me be more successful with making that contact. Right now, in terms of individuals accepting services, I apologize, I forgot to bring the numbers, it's actually doing really well. Talking with other police social workers, it's about a 60% success rate of people accepting the work of the social worker. And I just did the numbers the other day. I think it was close to about 70%. Now, granted, that is a small number because I'm not having a full caseload, but currently in terms of referrals to me, whether I identify them myself or someone refers, we're at about a 70% rate of people saying, yes, I'll accept some type of help. Yes, I'll meet with you, do a needs assessment. So it's definitely doing pretty well so far.
That's great.
Welcome to the
Thank
police
you.
department. One of the things that a couple of years ago, the department started interacting with the mobile crisis unit, which has seemed to be a very beneficial interaction for the department. Could you give me a sense of how you are or anticipate interacting with them and the level of communication that you may need?
Yes, so I think when I was discussing that, we want to make sure we're not duplicating, so that I'm not replacing existing services, and we're also not using the town's resources for things that already exist. So Sergeant Hood and I were actually talking about this not too long ago, where we were actually out on a call for someone who was experiencing suicidal ideation. We were there for something else. I just happened to be there. And we did kind of have that moment of, we really thought I was going to be much more involved in that and thinking, well, there's this, mobile crisis. That's what they're there for. So I have actually met with those individuals. We have kind of talked a little bit about how our roles could collaborate, but making sure I'm not stepping on their toes. So I don't think we'll actually have a lot of overlap, because we want to make sure that if that's something that exists, that what I'm being used for is really that population that's not accessing those resources or not being successful. I think we talked a little bit about maybe if we have individuals that are calling in that we're not at that level, or nothing's presenting that they are identifying that they're suicidal, to be hospitalized, but there is a little bit of a crisis going on, that maybe I might intervene more in that place, because mobile crisis will say they're not a harm to themselves, and then their services do end, and then that will be bridging the gap.
Just one more question. Have you talked about, and this may be in the works, it may be something you've decided not to do, but having, or do you already have a direct line, a direct number that you are giving out to people, or
Yes.
that the public knows about?
Yes, so I do have a direct line. The department has been wonderful of making sure that I have really what I need. I have a direct line. I have a cell phone, so my clients are much more, like I said, the ones I do daily check-ins, doing daily phone calls with multiple individuals will be difficult. So I have some people I text on a daily basis. I do have a radio that if I need to access the department, if there's any emergency, I'm able to do so. So the department has been wonderful with making sure I'm equipped with all of that. And I know that the general population does have access to it. Even now, just today, I think I got 2 calls from people looking for the social worker directly for advice for issues that they're having with family members or neighbors. And I actually did ask them myself if they called dispatch and were sent to me. And they said, well, no, I got your direct line.
Do you know where they got the direct line from, or is that
No, I
just
wish
out
I
in
had
the
asked
public?
that. I think I was a little surprised when they said that. I think, you know what, I think actually one of them did call dispatch, and dispatch sent them to me, and the other ones I had asked her, and she said, no, I called. She's like, your line is what I have, and I actually have another call with her, so I'm going to plan on asking her that, 'cause in the moment I was a little surprised. I was like, oh, that's great.
Well, we'll have to publicize that at the next meeting, your direct line. Maybe give you more work than you need. We appreciate you.
Of course.
Commissioner Fennell?
I don't have any questions. No, just welcome
Anybody
and
else?
thank you. Yeah.
I guess this is to you, Chief. How have you seen mental health calls trending?
So, when we get to the statistics from our crime analysts, will show since February, our mental health calls have gone down 50%. And like Brooke's only been here, just over a month now, so some of that is due to what she's doing, and I think it's just training of all these different tools that are available now to address mental health, and people are trying to use those before just calling the police department.
Well, Brooke, we're so happy to have you on board and to help within our community, and so thank you for all you're doing, and we look forward to maybe we can have you back in 3 or 4 months or so, and you can give another update with sort of how things are trending. We'd love to see you again, so thank you.
Thank you. I would love to do it. And, thank you, Portsmouth Police Department. It's been a very wonderful journey so far, and they've been very supportive. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome.
So now on to the Station Design Conference update. Last week, Commissioner Schur and Chief Newport attended the 2024 Station Design Conference in Glendale, Arizona. And by all accounts, was a really informative and wonderful conference for information. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Commissioner Schur, to share some of the takeaways from the conference.
Thank you. It was a 4-day conference in Glendale, just outside of Phoenix. I think the chief and I would agree that it's hot in Glendale, Arizona. Certainly hotter than here. The chief and I and many others had been to a similar conference in Washington, D.C., although smaller, last year when we were in the earlier stages of thinking about a new police facility or an improvement on this police facility, and that was a great conference for where we were in the process and giving a 5,000-foot overview of where we were and where we wanted to head. This conference was 4 days long, about twice as long as that conference, and it was a very deep dive. There was probably between the architects from around the country who have been building police facilities and fire facilities, for that matter, for years, and the attendees from any number of police departments. There's probably 250 people there. It was very well attended. And it really covered everything from soup to nuts, starting to think about a new police facility, all the way to the end, to the construction. I can't, I'd go on forever if I talked about everything that I learned there. A couple of points. One of the things that I was curious about is, and I know the City Council has been very curious about benchmarks and where we fit in as a police department that's building a building. Are we doing the right thing? Are we making decisions different than what everybody else is doing? And it was pretty clear that we fit squarely in what's going on around the country in building new police facilities. One of the things we learned in terms of cost is that the Northeast is probably along with California, the most expensive area to build a new police facility in terms of cost per square foot. The middle of the country is a lot cheaper, and that's just the way it is. So that was it was good to get that context for what we're doing. In that sense, the price per cost per square foot that we're now running in our latest iteration, tend to be at the lower end of what's happening in the Northeast. Best I was able to determine. There was a number of comparators that we were able to appreciate. Just one example. The Peabody Police Department, they have built a new police facility. They are building a facility with 48,000 square feet, which is about the same size as the facility that at this point we're looking to build. They have loosely about the same number of people, maybe a little bit less, and they're spending $70 million to build that building at a cost of about $1,000 per square foot, which is substantially about more than $30 million more, $28 to $30 million more than we're going to be spending. So that was an interesting comparator in our same region where costs are loosely the same. The other thing that was particularly benefit of the conference was they had a formal process where you could sign up and meet with just one of the architects that agreed to do this. You could meet with them one-on-one, and wherever you were in your process, you could just be thinking about building a building and talk to the architect about the kinds of things you needed to think about, or you could be well on the way, like we're substantially more down the road in terms of needs assessment, in terms of design. And we did that, and it was very, very helpful. One of the things we learned is the major message I got from that is twofold. One, you'd be nuts to build anything other than a IBC Category 4 building, the most secure kind of building. And number two, the architect looked at our needs assessment in the context of what space we were allocating as a general matter in terms of size of offices and things like that. And he said that we were really shrinking down to the bare minimum for office size and area size for what we were currently thinking about. And that was a valuable feedback for us. I know the City Council has been very concerned that we're potentially some in the City Council that we're overbuilding, we've got too much space. We got just the opposite message from this architect who had built, over 100, been the primary architect for over 100 police facilities around the country. So incredibly valuable conference. Again, too hot in Glendale, Arizona.
So just following up on that, Commissioner Schur, that analysis by that architect was completely independent, expert analysis, not related to any of the experts we've been using or the partnerships?
Completely independent. It was one of the great benefits that we had an independent, highly qualified architect take a look at the plans. The chief brought all the plans with him, and it was incredibly valuable.
Thank you. Thank you for all that takeaway. Chief, do you have anything else to?
Just to add on that, like Commissioner Scher said, we took everything that we've done over, basically the last year, 18 months, and presented it to an independent architect, showed him where we started, where we're at today, and reassured us that we were doing all the right steps. Everything that we have done up to this point was done right, with consultants, second opinions, going over our space needs assessment. We've scrubbed it 4 times, to the point in some areas where they pointed out that it may even be to our detriment. I think one of the biggest points I got out of it is not necessarily worrying about what we're building for today, but what we're building for tomorrow. And they put an emphasis when you're building a structure and putting this investment into it, that you need to think about the future and not just now. And I think we've been working hard on that track. I think we've been very frugal up to this point in spending the money that's been allocated up to this point, and crossing our T's and dotting our I's and looking to see where we can get as much efficiency out of this building, and also so that it can serve not only us as a police department, but also the community as a whole.
Just to finish that off, one of the message we kept hearing over and over again is it's important looking towards the future to do it the right way, not the cheap way.
And I'm going to just fast forward a little bit to facilities update and I'm going to move to the community policing facility planning. Last week we had the opportunity, and all the commissioners were present, to where there was a working session with the city council. And the city councilors had some very good questions about the building. There are some, if for anyone out in the public who missed the meeting and wants sort of the Reader's Digest version, where we came out is right now we presented a total project cost of under $42 million, which is what was allocated in the CIP. The building ends up being a price per square foot of $838. So it's actually significantly less than a lot of the comparative data that we have, both from that Chief and Commissioner Scher got from their conference, as well as looking out into other communities that are going forward with similar endeavors. One example is the Salem, New Hampshire Police Department, and that is closer to $1,000 a square foot as well, consistent with the Peabody Mass building. The effort is to put the building, the new structure, attach it to the existing police department so that we can use, and some of these cost savings and bringing us in on budget is in an effort to reuse some of that space in the existing police department. But at the same time, create a facility that is going to give the efficiencies, is going to be the most functional so that we can do the best, that the police department can operate most effectively and for our community. And that's the goal. And included in that is that very needed community space. That space is going to offer access to everyone in our town, where there's, there are some other spaces, but this one will be larger and more accessible to more people, as well as, fulfilling our objectives through the community objectives, including having that social worker, the social worker position, and having that space more accessible to the public. The city council there's going to be a vote on June 3rd, and that's about moving forward with this complex design in that location. It's important to note, and if you go online and you see the renderings in some of those drawings, those are just really rough drawings to get an idea of scale and massing. It is not representative of what the final building's going to look like. There's going to be windows, there's going to be, but it's really just to get a sense of massing on that at the location. And then some people might look at the drawings. Some of the schematics have big boxes for, like, for patrol or whatnot. It's just to give a sense of adjacencies and how for the functionality of the police department, and not specified. There is a document with some much finer tuned space needs and how the space is going to be divided. This was just to give an overarching and broad sort of exposure to the public of how the adjacencies are going to work or how it's anticipated to be laid out. So I'm, at every step of the way, I think what we're seeing, and it's being reinforced, is that the comparative data looks good for us. We're building an efficient police department. The vetting process through talking to independent expert analysis is that we're building an efficient police department that is going to meet the needs of our community now and in the future. So. Anybody else have anything? Chief, anything else?
I just reiterate that, our goal was to get a new police station. It's obvious that those costs came back significantly. This new space of, adding on to the front of the police station allows us to get a program that best fits the needs of our department as a community policing department. It gives us the security that we need as a police department, but it also gives us space where community can come and access our building as well that we currently don't have. It also, the purpose of trying to get as much out of our current space is because, as everyone is aware, we still have significant mold issues within our current facility, which started the whole conversation on trying to get us into a new space. And with that, this new addition and the path that we're going, it's going to allow us to get the majority of our programming into a new facility that's designed as a police station and not just fitted out as a police station, which is a big difference. But with that said, we are going to try and recapture some of the space in our current facility that could fit the needs that we have, reference to storage, some locker rooms and things of that nature, and move the majority of our operations into a new building and be able to do that seamlessly without having to relocate us to another facility would be another significant expense. So again, we're trying to be as efficient as possible, and this process, and I think the momentum that we're gaining now with this new proposal allows us to do that for the best bang for the dollar for the community. And we're looking at this facility to be the next police station for the next 50 to 75 years. So although it may be expensive today, if you compare it to what the cost will be at that time, or even 10, 20 years down the road, we're still pennies on the dollar moving forward.
Thank you, Chief. And since we touched down on some of the efforts for mold remediation and the concerns with the existing building, which are ongoing and costly to remediate, can you talk a little bit about the restoration efforts at this point?
Yeah, as I have been stating, we're still, have mold issues here. We're trying to get ahead of it now. We've brought in, commercialized dehumidifiers that are in the building now to try to prevent the mold from coming back. But again, it's a Band-Aid, to the problem, which is, updating and replacing the whole entire HVAC system, which, moving forward, if we're to move forward with the project as planned, all that in this space will be accommodated for in the new building with a new HVAC system.
Now, is the summer particularly bad as the warmer weather approaches because of the sweating of the pipes and whatnot?
Yes, like all that. Like I said, like right now, we actively already have the commercial grade dehumidifiers throughout our facility.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add? Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to the vote on June 3rd so that the needs of the police department and our community can be met to the best of our abilities. So with that, Chief, we turn it over to you. To the accreditation update.
Actually, we're going to talk about a donation first off.
Right.
So we were approached by a museum out in California that saw, I think, through the internet, Facebook posts, that we still had some old Crown Victorias that were police cars for a long time before we moved to the SUV. They have a nonprofit foundation where they're requesting, they want to add one of our old Crown Vics that we had just recently taken offline with some new cruisers that are coming online. If we would, if the city would be interested in donating one of those cars to the museum. So I'm going to ask the commission for a vote on that. Again, this is a museum that was created by some police officers. Some are retired, some are currently still policing. You will use the cars for parades and special events, but for all intents and purposes, they're not going to be used as police vehicles any longer. But they will do it at no cost to us. They will come out, ship the car out. They're going to restore the cars. They're just asking, these are cars that are no longer in service, will be no longer in service for our police department. And we're going to ask the commission, or therefore the council, if they're willing to donate the cars to the museum, a car to the museum.
I move that to allow the Portsmouth Police Department to donate an old Crown Victoria police vehicle to the Crown Victoria Museum in Hayward, California, and forward to the City Council for their action.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And now to accreditation.
Well, the accreditation update. The Professional Standards Office just completed 2024 file review, with a CALIA-trained assessor, which analyzed 25% of our standards, which is roughly 115 in total from the previous year, 2023, to determine whether or not we are remaining compliant with best standards in practice. A new component was added to the file review process this year. CALIA now requires the agency to choose 4 focus areas. The four areas that we chose and highlighted was the Comfort Dog program, our internal affairs and citizen complaints process, our Internet Crimes and Against Children Task Force, and our Officer Wellness program. Each focus area representative engaged in a phone interview with the assessor to discuss the agency's advancements, successes, challenges, process and trainings, etc. And all the assessor was impressed with our files and focus areas where he was briefed on. He identified 4 standard issues that required revision to a couple of policies, as well as a minor adjustment to our accreditation manager. All identified issues have since been corrected. In addition to the CALIA accreditation program, the department has successfully enrolled in the New Hampshire State Accreditation Program. Their standards of best practice and specifics to New Hampshire state laws and strengthen our department's compliance. So on the CALIA part, roughly used to go through a review every 4 years. And recently, CALIA changed that practice to instead of waiting 4 years and everybody rushing at the beginning of the 4th year to make sure it was in process. They started this new process of reviewing certain areas each year to make sure that you stay engaged and make sure you're stay on top of it year in, year out, rather than trying to do it all in 6 months for the last year when you're coming up. Which, as I just stated, we passed and we did well. I guess the good part is it's a good checks and balance, because although we did well, and there's still some minor things that they found, and we change and get it corrected. So it's always evolving, and we're also staying progressive and ahead of the game, rather than wait until something happens and find out that we had a policy failure later on down the road. The state accreditation is something that's just pertained to the state of New Hampshire. Although we have the CALIA accreditation, which puts us on a national standard, being a part of the state make us focus on just things specific to New Hampshire and make sure that we're addressing those individual issues. And so far we're doing great and we're ahead of the game.
And Chief, how often is that New Hampshire state accreditation?
I guess it'll work on an annual basis. I'm not really sure how,
So they're still
what
kind
their
of-
view. They're brand new, so they're still
I'm not sure they are sure.
they're still getting through the kind of the bumps in the road on how their program's going to run. I think right now they're just trying to focus on getting people signed up, and for the most part, there's a lot of police departments in the department that have no accreditation. So a lot of their time and energy is going to get those police departments ramped up and into their accreditation program. I think what makes it easy for us is being a CALIA accredited department. I think out of the state accreditation, there's only like 10
Communities.
10 standards that aren't part of a CALIA that we had to address specifically to the state. So for us, that's not a tall task. So we'll kind of sail through the program, but for someone who has never been through any accreditation, it could be a tall task.
And so with respect to those four, you said the Comfort Dog, Internal Affairs Investigations, ICAC, and the Officer Wellness, what do you have to do specifically in terms of those focal points?
They have standards that are in place to make sure that those individual programs are meeting the needs based off of the standards that they were looking at. And we were able to fulfill those needs, to show that we are fulfilling those needs.
Wonderful.
Nothing.
Okay.
Next up.
Analyst report?
All right, analyst report. All right. Deputy Maloney had to step away, so I'm going to fill in. Looking at our statistics from 2023 to 2024, our calls for service last year from 2020, January 1st to April 30 for 2023, our calls for service were at 14,680. So far this year of 2024, that same time period, our calls are at 14,150, which is a 3.67% change. I'll go through these and then we'll talk about some of the differences. The DWI in 2023 were at 21. They've risen significantly in 2024 at 34 for 47% increase, 47.27% increase. Our reported motor vehicle accidents have gone from 183 in 2023 to 153 in 2024, so that's down 17.85%. Our arrests have in 2023 at 253. In 2024, they're at 314 for a 21.5% increase. In 2023, the number of reports taken was 827. That same time period in 2024 is 839, so we're up plus 1.44%. Motor vehicle stops are 2,582 for that same time period in 2024, 2,410 for a minus 6.89%. IEAs, which are involuntary emergency admission to hospital for mental health issues, were at 19 in 2023 and have remained at 19 in 2024. Our mental health calls that come in related to mental health related calls in 2023 are at 80, and in 2024 have dropped to 48, so a significant drop of almost 50%. Juvenile matter calls were at 72 in 2023, and 2024 at 52 for a drop of 32.25%. I think for the most part, some of these numbers relate to an uptick in obviously calls and I think we're fully returned past all of the COVID times, and people are coming back out, spending time in the community. Portsmouth is a destination, where you look at the increase in the DWI, the number of arrests. The good part is, you'll see a significant drop in motor vehicle accidents. Motor vehicle stops are down. I think part of that is just because our staffing issues and not having a number of officers out there. Although our calls for service have gone down, I think our activity has gone up. IEA, as I said, have stayed the same, and our mental health calls have gone down significantly. And as we talked earlier with Brooke here, part of that is, having the social work, but also part of the mobile crisis units and having other options other than the police department is, showing significant difference so far, as well as with juvenile matters. The social worker as well will assist with that.
Yeah.
Any questions on the crime law?
I would just point out, I know I talk about this every meeting, perhaps, but when I started on the commission in November of 2021, I think it was, there was no mobile crisis unit available in the state, and we didn't have a social worker here at the police department. And to watch this develop over the last 2.5 years has really been it's really an excellent example of how this department keeps getting better and better in dealing with issues that matter to the residents of Portsmouth. So my compliments to the department.
I just echo some of those sentiments, and really between the mobile crisis response team as well as the social worker, we're really kind of dovetailing with some of the community priorities. What we're really seeing, I mean, this is exactly what we wanted to see happen. We're getting individuals in mental health crisis to get to the resources they need, rather than, it resulting in police intervention and potentially arrest due to mental health crisis. And so, looking at this, I think I couldn't be happier to see this change. And I think even some of the juvenile matter calls, that's a product of more stability in households as well as using the social worker. So those are two of the overwhelming changes in this report, and I'm glad we have the data. I'm glad we're getting this analyst report, so that bringing in that crime analyst, that goes back to another effort with community priorities. We're gathering the data. We can see what's working. We can pivot. We can make changes, but this very much reveals that we are, our efforts to address some of mental health concerns is working. So it's nice to see.
Okay. And then just moving forward, the traffic stats. This is for April 2024, which be in comparison to our last meeting, which was in February. Prior to that, we had 518 motor vehicle stops, which was 8 more than what was reported in February. We had 12 summonses, which is down 15 from February, and we had 41 reportable motor crashes, which was up plus 11 from February. So it's kind of a mixed bag of results. I think, again, the activity and the warm weather breaking, we're seeing more vehicles on the street. But again, with our resources that we have available, the number of traffic stops and the number of summonses and motor vehicle accidents is, I think, are reflective of the times and the weather change going from wintertime to the springtime, which is why, people are driving faster. We're out there, but not as much as we have been in the past, because our calls for service in that time are being handled and officers are being tied up on other things and not having the additional resources to put additional cars out there to help assist in motor vehicle activity. Questions on that? I'll move to Karen and the financial report.
I'll be very quick tonight. In our FY24, we're still tracking the same as we did last month at about 4.5% under the cap, which is very good. We will be returning money to the city's undesignated fund balance. We're working on the fiscal year 24 close for the regular budget and the quarter end reports for the grants. Regarding the FY25 budget, we're preparing for another Q&A, I guess, with the City Council meeting on Monday. They had a lot of questions in reference to staffing and whatnot, so we're preparing to speak to that. The strategic plan had to sit for about a week while we worked on the budget stuff. So I'm hoping by the end of the week I can get back to that. Basically, as I finish each section and it goes to the department, they're reviewing and sending back comments. So it should be forthcoming very soon. And then there's no grant updates, except for we're waiting for the 2 requests we put into Senator Shaheen's office and Congressman Pappas's office. So,
Are we returning money to the city because the city is giving us too much money to start with?
no. What we did, we prepared information for them to show that, we start the fiscal year maybe with 6 vacancies, but we fill those and overfill based on any resignations or retirements. We still end the fiscal year with some vacancies, but that happens right now. We had FY22. We had quite a few retirements and resignations, many due to money. But the contracts, we're hoping, stops that. And we have a very young staff right now, so we don't expect massive retirements in the upcoming years. We also have people that are deployed to the military, sometimes for a year. That creates a surplus because they don't get paid while they're gone. And then a multitude of other things can create the surplus, but it's mainly vacancies. And again, we looked back, I think I looked back all the way to 2014, and our average number of vacancies, except for 2022 forward, we averaged about 2 vacancies a year going into the new fiscal year. So our hiring practices are good. It's just this is a really weird 2 years we've had, 2-3 years we've had, and expect that to end now.
Although hiring around what we kept hearing in Glendale last week was hiring and retention is really difficult around the country.
It is, but when Lieutenant Benson did all his numbers, despite our 90+% washout rate of candidates, despite the difficulty of getting candidates, he's hired for all the candidates, the vacancies that we had open at the start of the fiscal year, and hired for quite a few of the resignations and retirements that we've had during this weird little spike of resignations.
Can you talk a little bit about where we are for our overtime budget?
Our overtime budget, we're, I think, $300,000 over, and we use the salary savings for that first, and then return any surplus from that.
And is that in large part mandatory overtime or voluntary overtime?
In dispatch, it's mandatory.
I'd say the majority of it is mandatory overtime between filling shifts and dispatch, between filling shifts and patrol for our shortage. I think some of the questions have been asked, with our 70 being budgeted for 70 officers, but we've been down, we've been functioning. I think what people may not understand is we know how many officers we need to be a healthy department and functioning department. What we're doing, and I know Deputy Maloney said this before, is not sustainable to continue doing at the pace that we're going for the amount of hours that officers are working in the order ends. But due to our staffing shortages right now, we are at a mandated ordering people in probably about 90% of our time just because of our staffing levels, because right now we're at 63, but if even if we're at 70, out of those 63, like right now we have 2 people in the police academy. They're not going to be good to the police department for another 4 months. From the time they hired, it's a minimum of 8 months before they even get on the street, so it's almost a year. So although, as Karen had stated, we're doing well at hiring people, it's just the influx of turnover with people retiring or leaving for whatever reasons, that it's, in addition to the opening spaces that we haven't been able to fill those. But again, right now we have 7 openings. We have 4 officers in the background now. 3 of them are lateral police officers, which means they can get to us a lot faster. We can put them in service approximately 4 months after they get hired. So if we get to it, it's an ebb and flow. Sometimes we get these people hired, then unexpectedly we have 1 or 2 people that were leaving, so we're always chasing. But with that said, I feel confident that we're going to get our positions filled in the next fiscal year and moving forward. I think it's a very slippery slope if you looked at reducing those numbers, because then you're getting into the core of our officers, and you talk about morale and retention. There's a work-life balance and a quality of life. And right now, our officers don't have much of a quality of life because they're always being ordered in,
Sorry to interrupt you. Could you just back up and just explain how mandatory overtime works? Just because I think lots of people in the public and otherwise don't understand.
Historically, overtime during different times of the day, there's been established since before I was a police officer here, is what we need for minimum staffing out there to keep our community safe. And that fluctuates depending on the day of the times of the day, the seasons of the year, but that number we feel is just enough to just get by to keep our city safe. but it does not allow any relief for our employees. Generally, when we look at a shift pick, which is the number of officers that are out there and available to work patrol, so let's take a full staff we're fully staffed with 70 officers. We're able to put, out of that 70 officers, 34, 35 that are actually patrol officers out there working the street.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time, not at the same day, but then you take out of that 35 is an available for 8, 12, let's say approximately 15 shifts per day throughout the 24-hour period. So that's 15 officers per day. If you take away the 35 out of the 15 that are on days off, and then you have people that may be out injured, you may have people that are on military leave, you may have people that are away in training, you may have people that are on vacations, that number gets smaller and smaller. So when we're down officers, that means more people have to work whether they want to or not. So it could be we have enough officers for the day shift and they're expecting to go home at 5 o'clock, and we had initially, starting the day, enough officers coming in the evening shift, but someone calls out sick. Now we don't have enough officers, so someone on that day shift needs to get ordered over and held over. And that can continue on. Like I can tell you last week, we had one day where we had 8 order-ins in one day, and
when you say order-ins, you're taking somebody who's not scheduled. And they're being taken out of the rest of their life and ordered in, and that's mandatory overtime.
They're either being held on, they're not able to go home when they're into the shift when they thought they were going to go home, or we call someone that was scheduled to come in later at the night and say, hey, we need you to come in right now before your shift.
And that's a mandatory order. It's not like you call them and say, hey, what do you think about coming in?
Right,
I've
yeah.
got plans to go to my
Right. So
kids' baseball game.
and we track that. Each individual officer is tracked on the number of order-ins, and we order in based off of the person who has the least number of them. So for example, we had someone that was in the military that was deployed. They were gone for the majority of the year, so they just come back. They don't have any order-ins. So they've been ordered in 4 consecutive days in a row because their numbers are so much lower than the officers that have been here. And it's just been a vicious cycle. Anytime they're here, they're getting ordered in because, like I stated, now, for unforeseen circumstances, like, between people being injured and all of the reasons that I already told, where we don't have that many people available. And it's not just, like, when I say we're short, it's not just in patrol. We're short in detectives, we're short in supervisors. We pass the pain around to everybody, and supervisors also are being ordered in for the supervisor shifts, and we are just trying to put our best foot forward and to give our city the best protection that we can. And we also need to protect our officers. We did a survey amongst officers, and having a very young department, I was actually surprised. I was shocked when I saw the results. Is one of the key things that they were asking for is more supervision. I think that speaks volumes for these officers to be able to say we need more supervision out there because we have such a young department and inexperienced department. They feel comfortable knowing that a supervisor is out there. So we've had to add additional shifts out there to give them the coverage that we need to make sure that everything's going right. And that's not only for our officers, but also for the community to make sure they're getting the treatment that they deserve. So when you weigh all those things in, 70 is basically our baseline of where we need. If we were fully staffed, I would be asking for additional officers, but I'm not going to ask for additional officers until we get up to where we need to be in the first place.
Going back to bring it full circle to the financial report, when we talk about being 200%, being far over budget on our overtime line, what we're saying is that's a lot of people being officers and, just personnel being forced in to stop what they're doing on their days off or time off or family obligations and coming in to serve, serve out a shift at the PD. Okay. Anything else, Karen?
No, that's good.
Well, it's a lot of heavy topics this evening, but important things to for the community to be aware of, as well as efforts for the future. So we appreciate everybody, all who tune in Zoom land or sometime on YouTube thereafter. We received the court office report, and does anybody else have any business to discuss? Nope. Well, our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, June 18th. Check the calendar on the city's website for any important meeting updates. And a reminder to everyone, now that the weather's nice, we see more motorcycles, mopeds, bicycles, and pedestrians. So please be safe on the roads and pay attention to everything around you. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks.